presentation was recorded live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the 22nd Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers. This is tape number 4, Successful Choreography, Basic and Mainstream.
All right. We're on tape now, so we can begin. We welcome you again. Yes, straighten it up. My name is Larry Cole. I'm from Indiana. I'm the moderator. I get the easy job. I kind of get to set the tone and turn it over to these two very experienced gentlemen beside me, Mr. Bill Peterson from Michigan, Mr. Jim Mayo. Where you at, Maine now? New Hampshire. New Hampshire. It's all the same out there. Give them a nice hand, will you please? We have 3 handouts that we'll give you maybe as we start the question and answer period. Maybe we'll ask 3 of you to help pass those or something. There are a few chairs in the front if you'd like to sit down, and we will get a square up later on. I would like to give you a little bit of an overview of what I see as successful choreography and how we go about it. I think there are 2 facets to successful choreography. One of them is successful choreography for the dancer. He goes home happy. He comes back the next week when you're calling. The other one is successful choreography for yourself. You feel good about what you've presented. Your nerves are not frazzled when you go home because it felt right, it worked, it flowed. You could see the dancers having a good time, and you could see things being successful for them. Therefore, you were successful, and they do come back again the next week. I started to prepare something for this and gave some consideration to how I viewed successful choreography. And as I thought about it, I got to thinking back when I was a kid and played with dominoes, and we would all set dominoes up on a table or the floor and set them up in a long row, or we would make intricate designs with them. And once we had finished that, if you tap the end one, why, they'd flow all the way through there and the rest would fall down. Successful choreography is a lot like that. You start to set up calls one after another for the dancers. They dance through them. Each time they do one successfully, you have another domino set up in your rotation. If you give them something that is not flowing or improperly timed or just simply doesn't work from there, you've bumped one of those dominoes early. And as you've all done this as a kid, I'm sure the dominoes then go in all directions, and all your work was for nothing because everything that you did that was good and well-timed and well-planned until that period is lost because your squares are broken down just like your dominoes fell down. Achieving successful choreography is hard work. You have to think about it, you have to study about it, you have to plan for it, and you have to be willing to deviate from the plan that you brought to the dance. It just simply might not work tonight the way you planned it. But you need to find another plan, another approach that will work and will be successful. I've listed 4 things that I consider to be important factors in successful choreography. One of them is body flow. As you're moving your dancers through the dance from call to call, if you have a smooth, flowing, well-timed body flow, they're going to be much more able to accomplish first one call and then the next than if you are herky-jerky, if you are giving them things that changes the direction of their body flow radically, very quickly. For instance, if you do a dive through, the new people in the center need to be able to do something in a forward motion. If you do a dive through and follow that with center's California twirl, you can almost bet they'll star through. There's just very little way they can keep from doing a star through. You've jammed them into the center, and then you've asked them to turn around and go the other way, but everything about them is still going forward. They know a California twirl's beside them, not in front of them, but they can't help themselves. That's not successful for them or you. So body flow is very, very important to successful choreography. Knowledge, I think, is very important to successful choreography. Your knowledge of the calls that you're going to use. You have to be able to put one call behind the other. If you've got a memorized routine or a routine that you know by heart, then you have that accomplished already because you already know that works. But if you're just calling spontaneously where you're heading for a sight resolution and you call whatever, XYZ, you have to know where that ends so that you can be ready to call the next call in a timely manner. If you have to wait and see the finish of XYZ before you can call another call, now you have the floor moving in a herky-jerky start and stop situation that is not smooth for them, nor will it be very successful. It'll have limited success. They can dance that way. They will go home exhausted and tired. Next week when they decide to go, they might try another place just to see what it's like. They really won't know why. There was nothing wrong with the dance. It all worked. But they just were tired when they went home. So knowledge plays an important part. Know what you're going to call, know where it ends, know what you can do from there so that you can move on smoothly to the next. Overflow, I think, is an important factor in successful choreography. If you get a square moving in the same direction over and over and over and over, and you start a windmill effect, and they just continually go to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, or to the left, or whatever, soon become disoriented, and they don't really know any longer heads from sides, from lines, from anything. You simply have totally mixed them up. Their compass no longer works. Likewise, I feel overflow is hand succession. If you do things that require them to use the same hand over and over again, it would be like walking always with the right foot first. In other words, if you walk right, brought the left to it, walk right, brought the left to it, walk right, brought the left to it. We don't expect to walk that way. We expect to walk right, left, or left, right, however you started. We also normally expect a hand rotation. It's just the way that we move, and we expect that hand rotation to be there. If you take that away, you also take away some of the ability to have successful choreography. One of the largest factors for myself for successful choreography is the music that I use. I think music plays a huge, huge factor in how successful your choreography comes off on the floor. Sometimes I pull the record by the choreography that I want to call that tip. Sometimes I pull the choreography by the record that I want to use that tip. If I have a feeling that this is the music that's going to be very good, this particular tip, then I will come with choreography that I feel works for me for that music. If I have certain choreography that I want to use, then I will consider the music that I have laid out and available and pick the record that I think allows me to use that particular choreography well. I believe that melody makes the dancers dance as much as a downbeat to dance on. If you give them a nice strong downbeat to dance on, their feet will move up and down, but they can do that in place. But in my opinion, for me, if I tack some melody on the back of there, that melody reaches out and keeps kind of kicking them in the rear, move forward, move forward, move forward. And I've seen that as I teach. If I teach more intricate calls, spin chain through would be one on the mainstream, relay deucey would be one on the plus. If I teach those with a record that has a lot of melody in it, I have much more success at getting the people to dance all the way through that longer call than if I teach it with what I call a boom boom hoedown that just goes bang 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 bang. Because I think the melody of that song moves those people through the figure that I want them to dance. And for me, it works the same through my hash if I use something that has some melody. I have a few record examples of things that work well for me. I don't want to take a lot of time playing music for you, but to me it is so important in what I do and what I feel is successful for me that I want to show some of it to you, share some of it with you, just as an example of the things that do work for me. When I work dances with other callers, they don't use my pattern records. Right, Larry?
You never buy any new ones. That's the reason.
If you work with Peterson, they all got scratches on them. Things that work for me when I want really smooth flowing things, these are some of those.
Is that a rawhide record?
No, it's not. It's a quadrille. Enough melody behind it for what I do to keep those people moving along. I don't think there's enough melody there. It does not interfere with me. If you're just starting to work with a record with melody for patter, it will interfere with you. If you want to learn to work with records with melody for patter, use them at your lessons first, not your dances. You are involved teaching the people at lessons, and your mind is busy, and it will override the melody that will bother you at first. Later on in the dance, you know you're using, you simply don't hear it. This works good for me to keep the dancers moving along, but there's enough downbeat to keep their feet moving up and down. For some reason, that's sliding. That's a quadrille 907 called Thinking Problem. You know, it's funny sometimes as you listen to these and you're thinking about them for hash, you can't really recognize what the singing call would have been because you've tuned it out already. This one has worked for a long time for me, for that. We have a bad PA somehow. It's everything sliding. Bad. But that will make people dance for me, and it will keep them moving forward as well as dancing on the beat. That's on a rhythm. You're talking to the wrong man. It's number 215. If I really want, and also part of my consideration in what music I pull is whether I'm doing mainstream plus advanced, because some of the things that work for me at one program don't work for me at the other program. This one would not work for me at mainstream and very few plus. But if you've got a nice smooth dancing group, you can call hash with this and really make them float along. Must have a bad beagle. That's a red boot. To all the girls, number 1354. Yeah, it's not too old. And I look for things that are different than what everybody else is using so that my successful choreography includes something that was a little bit different. Here's a neat record. It made a nice singing call. Wouldn't have thought at first about using it for hash because it has harmony on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not quite as smooth flowing. I put a little harder choreography with this than I would with some of the other stuff, but it keeps them moving right along. My point is, experiment with your record case. See what you have in there. Watch what that does to your floor. And see how it affects your choreography and the successfulness of it. That's a Chinook. That's How Much I Love You. 116. Take two more and I'll quit. This one I can dance people through a lot of material because it keeps them moving, but it doesn't interfere with them. And you can really make them walk, really make them work. Enough melody to keep them moving, in my opinion. Enough downbeat to keep them dancing. All you got to do is learn to use them. For me, I think it's helped my choreography a lot. That's a Rawhide Naughty Lady of Shady Lane, 185. The singing call that was guaranteed to start your dance on a high note. A lot of melody. But I'm telling you, if you want to start the evening hot and be successful with the first tip and have everybody thinking that they're going to be able to dance everything you dance all night long, that Fancy Free on a Royal number 104 will do that for you. A lot of melody in all of those, but for me, for successful choreography, those are very, very important, and they've helped me make my choreography more successful than I was with it before. That is on a handout, most of it, that we'll give to you later. I thank you for your attention for that. I tried to set the stage. Mr. Bill Peterson from Michigan will go next. No, he asked for last. We took a vote. You lost.
But your wife voted.
Not the reason you lost.
That's the reason I lost. I figured. I've worked with Larry quite a bit. You can tell that. We share a great deal. Well, not wives, but I forgot this is on tape. I better clean it up. What I presented to you is a little idea that I use, and you will get a copy of it. It's called a choreography chart. What I've done is this. I put column A, column B, column C. Column A, you do all setups into a certain figure. The one you're going to get a copy of, can we pass this out? Would that be fair? Would that be okay?
Yeah. You got a volunteer? Somebody will get them, Bill. Everybody's going to get them, Bill. Just kind of spread them around, make sure everybody's got one.
There's just one copy.
Yeah, so you want to square now, or you want to talk first?
I was going to say talk.
Talk.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for some...
You can use a square with yours if you want.
What?
You can use a square.
All righty. This is a most elementary form of my chart. Basically, what I've done here is I've worked on getting people into zero lines, as an example. Yes? You got a question already? Oh. Okay, how are we doing? And occasionally when I work with caller groups, sometimes you get callers who haven't had as much experience at creating choreography. So what you do is you start with a basic chart. Now, I only included 3 things, but you should be able to work on, first of all, in column A, you've got setups to achieve a starting formation of 0 lines. Obviously, heads lead to the right, circle to a line. You should be able to come up, if you work a little bit, 10 examples of how to get in lines of 4, 0 lines of 4. 10, with no problems at all, really. Secondly, is the meat of your thing. That's your figure right there, depending upon what level you're working on. This was basic program. And third, of course, are get-outs. You should be able to come up with 10 of each of these. Now, I also have one for mainstream. I've also got one for plus, one for A1, one for A2. It makes you work and create ideas. I did this about 5-6 years ago when I went to Sweden to call for the first time. And those of you that are not familiar with Sweden, they call multi-level dances. Basic, then mainstream, basic, then plus, basic, then A1. And you are constantly changing. Plus, they teach their dancers for 1 solid year in basic. When I went in May, they were doing basic 1 to 49. Well, these people can dance. They're not pushing their people up to plus. And then another solid year, a lot of them are doing in mainstream. So you had to come up with ideas for this thing. So you had to create these ideas. So this is what you do. This just starts you out. as I said. Now, what you're doing basically is you're trying to get into a certain formation. Then you're doing the center section basically is 0 movements. Taking you from one spot, returning you to the same exact spot. The third column is get-outs. The nice thing about this is flexibility. You take anything from column 1, put it with anything from column 2, put it with anything from column 3. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm sure there must be quite a few possibilities here. And as I said, if you've got 10 over here and 10 over here and 10 over here, you just keep zigzagging from top, middle, bottom, top, 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 bottom. Without any problem at all, you should be able to come up with a full program as such. Now, as I said, this is the basic program. Of course, you obviously have less to work with because you've got 49 calls. It can be done in any program. The mainstream program, you take basically in the mainstream program the center section, and what I do is I take the mainstream list. I do a figure with tag the lines, a 0 figure with tag the lines, another figure with walk and dodge, another figure with cloverleaf in the center section, the meat section. You'll notice too I've done some little things over here in get-outs. You don't have to always do an Allen and left. You can go into a right and left grand. Or if you, the relatively new concept of ending at home and just saying you're home, such without a grand right and left or a promenade. I know how many. I'd be very interested. How many work with that concept? Hands. Very good. Frequently. Let's put frequently. Okay, very interesting. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. I know some callers who it's either or, almost, that they either end with a promenade or a grand right and left, or they always end up at home. But you can do that with this thing right here. I'd like to get a set of dancers up here. We're going to use 2 sets. I'll take one, and then Jim, you're going to need a set of dancers, will you? No? Oh, you won't? Okay, well, I guess that eliminates that, doesn't it? May we have some volunteers?
Can we get square real quick?
Yeah.
Now.
Okay, here's one couple. We need 2.
Now, you don't have a chance for
2.
the prize if you don't dance.
No prizes?
No, there is no prize, but you don't have a chance anyway if you don't dance.
This is a very high-paid position. Okay.
You got them standing in line. Good deal.
I did want to make one comment about what Larry said about music. Music is extremely important. I do dances, the entire dance, without playing the same label patter records twice. You know, every patter record comes out on a certain label, has the same instrumentation. It's not in the same recording studio. So what Larry's saying, among other things, is that you have different types of instrumentation. I think we're going more and more into using singing calls for patter records, because they still have a good beat, but they have a little bit of melody in them. Now, when you're doing a workshop, it might be something a little different. Okay, put that first record on, Larry. This is a record I particularly use, and a lot of the callers like. This is called By the Sea and Grin. We'll bow to the partner. Let's make sure we get the heads. Okay. Heads lead to the right. Circle up forward. Got a line. Go forward 8 and come on back. Good. Now that was the simplest form, wasn't it? Now in the middle of your chart there, we're doing stuff that are the figures. Now we're doing basic in this particular chart. So pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through. First couple go left, next couple go right. Now we know that is a 0 movement right there, isn't it? They're back in exactly the same spot. Okay, now to use a get out, instead of doing a star through, square through 3 to a left dollar man, let's do this. Star through. Remember, slide throughs on the mainstream program. Do a right or left through. Pass through, element left. Come back and promenade. We eliminated the square through, 3. Now if you notice, you should be home. If you'll notice, square through 3 in choreography, a right and left through and a pass through is equal to a square through 3. If you know this, then you can substitute one for another. Okay, now let's have the heads promenade half. Lead to the right, circle forward, break and make a line. Go forward 8 and come on back with a right or left through. Okay, now we get the same lines of 4 with your partner on the right, your corner on the left. We just changed it slightly. By promenading half, you put them half out of sequence. Then you have to do the right and left through to put them back in sequence. You all know this, I'm sure. Okay, now we did some of the touch 1/4. All 8 circulate. Boys run. Now, most of you use this little figure. That's a little figure to convert you from 0 lines into a 0 box, as you see. It's a 0 movement is what it is, really. Now, from this point, let's do a right and left through. Then roll this girl with a half sachet. Everybody pass through in a right and left grand. Grand right and left. So we've eliminated the element left. See? It's a little bit different choreography. Okay, now here's a little crazy get out that is actually got one mainstream call in it. We'll do this now to you too. Heads flutter wheel first of all. Good, same 2, square through 4. When you get done, everybody circle up 4. Break out, got a line. That's another lead into a line, 0 line. That's good, nothing to it. Touch 1/4. Now I always like to use some unusual get outs here. All the boys shake left hands. Pull by. Here's the one mainstream call I snuck in here. All the girls fold in front of the boys. Do a right or left grand. Grand right and a left, go moving around the big old land. It's a little bit different type of choreography as such. Nothing to it, is there? Good. Now, let's have the sides, who I've forgotten temporarily. I'm sorry about that. Good. All right. Pass the ocean. Extend to the outsides. Now, we know that we're not in a 0 box wave. We are now in a what I used to call box 1-2 when we used to do choreography with Willard a long time ago. Jim remembers that. A long time. But now we got to convert this into a 0 line. So we're going to do a swing through, everybody. Girls circulate. Boys trade. Boys run. Bend the line. Now, what we've done is we've converted them into lines, but because we were half out already, we got to put them half in. Do a right or left through. Good. Now we're back in 0 lines. Corner on the left, partner on the right. See? Okay, now, here's a nice little easy get out for you. You probably all have used this one thing. From 0 lines, let's have the centers square through 3. Ends, do a left man. Everybody come back to your original partner. Whoops, pardon me. Center 4, face your partner. Pass by, and a right or left grand. Grand right and left. That's called making a mistake and making the best of it. Promenade. I should have said square through 4 in the center. So all I did is had him square through 3, and then to make up for it, have him face their partner.
That's what you won't have if you follow the chart that Bill's demonstrating.
Right. I didn't really have a good enough time with your wife last night. You're going to buy this tape just for the X-rated business on it. Okay. All right. Let's change records. I don't want to wear out that. That's.
Yeah, I'd hate to wear that out.
Yeah, it's a. Here's another.
What do you want? This?
Yeah. Here's another record that's a singing call. It's got a little bit different beat to it. You may like this. Now let's go into. You've got the idea there. All right. We're going to go into the mainstream idea. Ready? Sides. Ready? Lead to the right. Veer to the left. Bend the line. 8 to the middle and come on back. To the right or left through. Now we're back in 0 lines, aren't we? Good. Pass through. Tag the line. Now what I've done in the center is started to use the mainstream group of calls. Tag line. Face the middle. Go forward 8. Come back. Box the net. Look her in the good eye. With a right or left through. Turn your lady. Now pass through. Tag the line. Face the middle. Good. Go 8 to the middle and back. Box the net. Look her in the eye. With a right or left through. Now what we've done basically is done a 0 movement. We're back in lines of 4. See them? Here's a cute little get out you can do. Go forward 8 and back. With a left hand, left touch a quarter. All 8 circulate. Girls run left. Left down a man, to come back 1 and you promenade. Just a little bit different. No grand right and left. Should be home. Good. Side couples touch 1/4. Walk and dodge. Swing through. And the boy will run. And you bend the line. There's your lines of 4, see? 8 to the middle and come on back. Pass through. Wheel and deal. Now, let's go from lines of 0 lines of 4 back into a 0 box. We're going to keep working back and forth. And this is the way you do it. Lines of 4 pass through wheel and deal, which we just did. Centers do a swing through. Now do a turn through. See, there's your 0 box. So we converted lines of 4 right into 0 box like that. Here's a real nice little get out. Touch 1/4. All the girls run to the right. Give me a line, 8 to the middle and back. Now you have sashayed lines. If they can dance a little bit of all position. Ready? Square through 4. Count to 4. Walk right into a right or left grand. Grand right and a left. See, nothing to it. Grand right. Promenade. Now that's all basic. That was nothing but basic. Except for the walk and dash. Good. Sides. Watch the heads. Go up to the middle and back. Pass the ocean, please. Extend to the outsides. Swing third. Girls circulate. Boys trade. Boy run. Bend the line. Go. 8 to the middle and back with a right or left third. Now we're back in 0 lines. That was a setup I set for you. See? All right. Now let's work on something that's also on the mainstream list. Let's work on Cloverleaf a little bit, all right? Now, we got lines of 4, touch 1/4, all 8 circulate, boys run right. We've gone from 0 lines back into 0 boxes, see? You go back and forth in this. Let's do a little thing with Cloverleaf. I'm sure you've all done this. Swing through. Centers run. Tag the line. Cloverleaf. See the Cloverleaf with the girls in the middle? You should have the pretty ones in the middle. Most of these are. Yeah, okay. Center square through 3. That's the girls. I meant the guys on the outside. Girls. Do a do-side-do. Now, this figure has you facing your corner right now. If you want, you could do an Allemande left. But you'd have to come all the way around back to your partner. But let's do some things with it. Step to a wave. Ready? Scoot back, boys. Very nice. Good. Scoot back, girls. Now, all the girls run around the boys. Give me a line, 8 to the middle and back. Now, what you have is you have your corner on the left, your partner on the right. Okay? Watch how we do this now. Go forward, 8 and back. Bend the line. Left Allemande. See, come back 1 and promenade. Nicely done, see? We take them from one side, put them on the other side. Here's the same figure with just a little bit different ending. Hit 2, touch 1/4, do a walk and dodge, swing through. Centers run. Bend it, there's your lines. Go 8 and back, touch 1/4, all 8 circulate. Boy run around the girl, we converted to 0 box again, didn't we? Swing through. Center will run. Tag your line. Good. Cloverleaf, put the girls in the middle. Good. Girls square through 3. We're back in the same spot. Do a do-sa-do. Check her out. Make a wave. Scoot back, boys. Scoot back, girls. Girl run around a boy. Go 8 to the middle and back. Now, we've got your corner on the left, your partner on the right. Box the net. Look her in the eye. Do a right and left. Left Allemande. Here we go. And a right or left grand. See how we converted one to the other? Nothing to it, is there? These are all little gimmicks you write out. Lift it up. Now, what we've done is I've taken the first column that you have there, put them in a certain formation, either 0 box or 0 lined. Then in the center, do a series of movements on whatever level you're working at. If you're working with basic, mainstream, plus. Then the third column, you've got get-outs. All those little get-outs I showed you, we didn't write them up, by the way, but those are things that I have accumulated over the years and stolen from most scholars, which you've all done, I'm sure. You go to a dance? No, this guy never did, but not much. He's the guy I saw at my dance writing them down at the same time. That's research. I love that. Never heard that, but that's true. You're right. And that's why we go to other people's dances, isn't it true? As I said, too, I had the opportunity to call in Sweden, and when they dance a whole year up to May on just basic 1 to 49, you better come up with some interesting ideas. I'll show you one more little idea that'll blow your mind, really. And I did this, I do it as a workshop. And you can do it at any level, really. But it presents a completely different look. This is choreography, but something unusual. Let's have the heads, if you would, basically pass through separate, go around 1. You can set this up any way you want, but this is what you want in the line. Go forward 8 and back. Now, if you're doing plus, you're going to do a single circle to wave. If you're doing basic mainstream, let's have you box and that. Do a do, sa, do. That's the same as single circle. Make a wave, please. That would be the same as single circle to a wave. We've converted one to the other. All the boys run right. Look what you got. You've got a long two-face line. Working in your group of 4. Wheel and deal. Slide over to two-face lines. That will, right there, you have to walk them through it and talk them through it. See? Ferris wheel. Centers pass through. Alum in the left. Nothing to it. See? Promenade. Take a little walk. Go. That's a great workshop figure because very seldom do you work from long two-face lines. I'll do it for you once more, but we'll add to it. We got some good dancers here. Sides. Go up to the middle and back. Swing through. Boy trade. Turn through. Separate. Round 1, make a line. So what I did is I exchanged, had sides pass through round 1 to a line to do a swing through, centers trade, turn through, which is the same, is equal to a pass through. You can write these things down. All right, good. Go forward 8. Come back. Box and at. Look her in a good eye. A do a do sa do. Check her out. Make a wave. Boys run right. Okay, now we have the same long two-face line. This is where the key comes in. You must say in your group of 4, and to help them along, what I do is I say, just think of that your line has just done a pass-through. Keep in mind, wheel and deal, 2 of the most important rules is right in front, left behind. The right couple in front, left couple behind. The most important rule in here is when you finish wheel and deal, you must end up facing the opposite direction from what you started. You've got to keep emphasizing that. Right in front. In your group of 4, wheel and deal. Slide over to two-face lines. Fantastic. All right. Ferris wheel. Now, if you want a different get-out, you can do the little thing I did with you. Swing through. Don't do it. Boys trade. Turn through, which is equal to a pass-through. But how about this? Do a right or left through in the middle. Ready? Swing through. Centers run. Do a half tag to the left. Left down a man to come back run and promenade. Just a little bit change from what you were doing before. Clap your hands. Slap your knees. This is your reward. Give your corner a hug and squeeze. That's your reward for being dancers. Hey, thank you very, very much.
All right. So what Bill has demonstrated to you is that if you take the idea that he has on his chart and put in some time at home and get the 3 columns on the chart so that they will interchange, you can pull a sequence from A to B to C with material that you now know because you worked it out and put it on the chart. You know that it works. You know that it flows. You've checked it to see if maybe ahead of a Ferris wheel you need a couple circulate, depending on where they came in just before you were ready for the Ferris wheel, those kind of things, so that your body flow is working good and, you know, you're not making it difficult for the people. Then you have, like he said, if you've got 10 A's, 10 B's, and 10 C's, you've got a extraordinary amount of good, smooth-flowing, workable, successful choreography that you know works, that you can use as a set of notes if you so desire. Jim? Yeah, we'll take all the questions at the end. We are passing a handout for those of you that are on the tape. And here's Mr. Jim Mayo.
I am interested in your examples, Bill. Some of those are among the most difficult figures that you can expose people to, and the point you're trying to make is that in order to get them through successfully, you need to develop it, you need to work at it, you need to lead them into it so that they can be successful. Your half-sachet line square through is about the most complicated, not because, even for people who can do the half-sachet square through, the temptation for the center 4 who are a normal couple is to go ahead and do that square through in the center. And you're almost guaranteed to get somebody trying to do that. And that leads me to the points I want to make. First of all, to talk about some of the principles that guide us in trying to make our choreography succeed. As I have traveled around the countryside working with callers and doing caller clinics and caller schools and caller training, I have concluded that one of the weakest elements in our caller training is facing up to the fact that there is no way a caller can avoid understanding the consequences, the choreographic effect, what every single call does to the position of the dancers. Larry started off his session with saying that knowledge is essential. And that knowledge includes whether you are a sight caller or a module caller or a mental image caller. In order to make your choreography succeed, you as a caller must know what every single call that you use does to the dancers from every single setup in which you use it. And by setup, we mean formation and arrangement. You heard Jerry Reed talk about that this morning. Those are terms that caller coaches have been bandying around for many years. But I'm not sure that all callers, even today, understand what we mean by formation and arrangement. Formation is the shape of the square, whether it's a box or lines. If you look down on top, whether we have waves or what the shape of the square is the formation. The arrangement means the arrangement of boys and girls within that formation. Are the girls on the boy's right? Are you holding right hands? Is the end person on a wave a boy or a girl? The end person looking in or looking out? And every caller, for every call, must know before you give the call what that call will do to both the formation and the arrangement. Why? So that you will know whether the next call is easy or difficult. And if you don't know whether the next call, the next setup, will be easy or difficult for your dancers, then you cannot assure that they will succeed. And when we talk about successful choreography, that's what we're talking about. Making sure that the dancers succeed. Many years ago, we had an accepted standard as we talked about dancer success. It was quite well accepted that if you had 80% success at a dance, you were doing your job. There are two ways of looking at 80% success. One of them is that 80% of the people succeed 100% of the time. And the other is that 100% of the people succeed 80% of the time. Those are very different dances. They are by no means the same. But I'm very pleased to note that over the past decade, particularly, the 80% standard is giving way to a 100% goal. We all know that at many dances it's impossible to get 100% because there may be a weak link. When I count the percentage of success at my dances, I drop that weak link, the person who came to the wrong dance. I drop them out of the calculation. I cannot run a dance that's successful for everybody if I got somebody at a plus dance who doesn't know the plus calls. So I am willing to leave out of my calculation of 100% success those dancers who really cannot do the calls from the program that I'm using in their most standard form. But if they can, then I want them to win all the time. I've also discovered that that's a very difficult job. I've further discovered that an awful lot of callers never know what the success rate is. Principally, those are sight callers because they pick a key square or two. And because of their own lack of understanding of the effect of calls, they watch their key square to see what happens as they call. And if you'll stand at the side at a convention sometime and watch, you will discover that a very high percentage of sight callers never see the rest of the floor. They concentrate entirely on their key squares, and they never look over there. One way to solve that is to pick your key square at the back of the hall, but we tend not to do that. It's a lot handier if they're right up here. Unfortunately, we then watch right up here, and we don't see the disasters that are happening back there. It's important to know whether your dancers are succeeding or not. Jerry this morning talked about standard formation, standard applications. And that's a word that we need to be very aware of as we strive for dancer success. We have now provided documentation. We've got the books. We've been through the research. And we know what uses, what setups are likely to get dancer success.
Set is the front side of your cassette. Please turn your tape over and begin again.
Thank you, brother.
We turned over the tape, in case you didn't notice. The standard applications documents let us identify what is almost certain to succeed. And we should, as callers, pay attention to that. In developing interesting choreography, and be sure that the word interesting does not change as you think about it into the word challenging. In order to be interesting, choreography does not have to be challenging. It needs only to be different. Not repetitive sequences, not doing the same sequence of calls over and over again. That makes dancers bored. But dancers don't know the difference between different choreography and difficult choreography. They have no basis for judging. Difficult for them means only, I made it or I didn't make it. And while we, as callers, are fascinated by interesting choreographic puzzles, dancers don't measure by the same standard. Many years of trying to understand what dancers find interesting has led me to believe that the principal requirement for most dancers in mainstream and plus programs is that the choreography change, that it not be repetitive. That's not a big challenge for sight callers. Sight callers can make changing choreography fairly easily. Our challenge then comes to make that changing choreography consistently successful. And that's not as easy. Because to do that, you must know before you give the call what the choreographic effect of it will be. Non-standard, unusual setups should never be a surprise to the caller. If they surprise the dancer, that's fine. But they should never be a surprise to the caller. The next principle to follow is that if you are using something that is potentially confusing, something that's a surprise to the dancers, and you want to be sure of success, make your first setup, your first use of it, one in which the left allemande is the next call, preferably, or very soon after that. Don't go through a complicated process or a sequence that is possibly going to cause trouble, and then need 6 calls to get to the allemande left. As you may have people standing quite a while because they didn't make it successfully through your surprise. You should be aware of what non-standard is so that you don't bunch them into a single sequence. If you want to surprise the dancers, one surprise in a sequence is enough. Don't put 3 or 4 into the same sequence. If you're going to use sequences that involve non-standard uses in more than one per sequence, if you're going to put 2 or 3 of them into a single sequence, lead the dancers up to it. Use each of them in a separate sequence and then put them together. That's a process that we call developing the choreography, developing the figure. You teach the dancers by exposing them to one piece of it at a time, how to do those pieces, and then you put them together into the longer sequence that includes 3 or 4 of the unusual actions in a single sequence. But you have made them less confusing by letting them experience it. Now, if you've got a sharp group and they're all dancing fine, you don't go through all those steps. We're talking about how to make different, non-standard choreography available to weaker dancers successfully. And if they're sharp, you don't have to baby them. What we're talking about here is how to help them enjoy choreographic variety, even when they're not strong enough to charge on through it without help. Finally, the most, very critical, let me not say the most, but a very critical component in dancer success is the timing of the call. As I watch dancer failures, as callers call and as I call, very often the reason for the dancer failure is caller timing errors. And by timing we mean the placement of the command with respect to the dancer action. How far ahead of their starting into the action do we give them the command? Do we in fact let them come to a complete stop and then give them the command? Sometimes that's necessary in order to assure success. If you expect them to move continuously through the action, it's more difficult than if you let them stop, go. I call that stop-go type of timing workshop timing. And it is what we use when we're moving dancers through a sequence that is not easy for them. But that's not dancing. That's workshopping. The experience of dancing, of moving uninterrupted through a flowing sequence, is unique and unfortunately rarely available in my observation of square dancing. We callers tend to be fascinated by choreography that is more challenging than dancers can handle successfully. And then we use workshop timing, stop, go, keywords, extra words, any trick that we can to get them through the sequence. The price we pay is dancing. And this is not a session about programming, but I can't let any opportunity with a microphone and a room full of callers go by without pitching hard my belief that we callers have caused many of the troubles we are in by over-concentrating our attention on what we find interesting, choreographic challenge, and under-concentrating on the other side of this wonderful activity, which is the opportunity to dance, to move without interruption through dance sequences that fit the music, where your feet keep on going, where your hands don't have to hesitate, where your body doesn't stop, so that you dance in square dancing. Good dancing is not readily available in square dancing, and that's our fault. Off the soapbox. Back to the game at hand. I've included on your handout a series of actions, sequences, that illustrate the kind of principles that I've been talking about, the kind of unusual actions. And unusual here means non-standard, and we have a standard book. So wherever in these sequences I have used something that is not in the standard applications book as a standard application, you'll find an asterisk beside it. Let's look at the first one. Heads lead right, veer left, bend the line on a reverse flutter. This is just another way to get to that zero line that we were working for. A reverse flutter from facing lines is a non-standard application. There's a risk. That's not a very non-standard. They're moving the right direction, but it is not in the list of standard setups. Why? Because the only one in there is two couples facing. When those two couples are side by side with another pair, then it's non-standard. Important for us to know that. Then sweep a quarter star through pass-through and partner trade gives you the line, essentially the same kind of line that Bill was setting up. Fan the top is a figure that dancers don't do easily. Why? Because we don't use it a whole lot. If we used it more, they would probably be more successful with it. I have found that this setup, where I do a scoot back first and then hinge, moves the center people toward each other with the right hand in the right place, and they almost can't help but do a fan the top. It's the natural thing to do. And in order to make a non-standard action succeed, it helps if you can set it up so that they flow into it comfortably. This fan the top also sets up so that I've got two calls to go through to get to the Alaman left, and one of those is non-standard again. It's a recycle. And why is recycle a non-standard setup? Because it's from a tidal wave, not from parallel waves. And that makes it a little more complicated. You need to know that. You need maybe to give them a half a beat extra time. How long is a half a beat? A half a beat is not very long. One beat is a half a second. A half a beat is a quarter of a second. Does that really make a difference? Yes, it makes a big difference. An interesting story that hit me, I read it many years ago. One of the outstanding violinists of the world was talking about playing at Tanglewood, which is the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. It's an outdoor shed with no walls. It's got a roof but no walls. And the sun sets so that it looks straight into the shed. And this violinist said it's a difficult place to play, particularly if you have a concerto at the first part of the concert, because as the sun sets, the temperature changes. As it goes behind the trees, the temperature on stage drops. And that changes the tension in the strings, and so you have to adjust the fingering to compensate. And I said, yeah, sure. Are you kidding me? You're going to adjust the fingering as you play a concerto? And yes, he did. He was that proficient. For me, timing for callers is the same kind of thing. We're talking about very minor differences, but they are very important to dancer success. On the other hand, if you have bad timing all the time, timing adjustments don't make much difference. Unfortunately, bad timing is not as uncommon as we wish it was. One way you can tell about the importance of timing, you probably, if you've paid any attention at all, have noticed that quite often the square you're watching succeeds even as the rest of the floor falls apart. The reason for that is timing. Your timing is right for the square you're watching, not necessarily for the whole floor. Timing is always a compromise. It can't ever be right for everybody because they move differently. But splitting that second and adjusting the timing of your call by as little as a quarter of a second can make the difference between success and failure. It's a very important component. Recycle variation, just for laughs, one where you better give them a lot of extra time while they stop and think about what you really meant, is to have just the boys recycle. Many of the girls find recycle a pretty awkward call anyway. They just stand there and spin around in place. I know some women who don't do recycles. You call a recycle, they'll pass the boy around. And when he grabs and tries to yank him through, they just let him loose. But it's an interesting variation. It is nothing but a cross-fold from a standard wave. But it's a gimmick. It'll get a laugh, guaranteed. I set it up here first with everybody doing that recycle. But if you have trouble, try it again with just two couples. Do it for the heads in the center. And play it there. But always set it up so that the next call is an Allemand left. So that at most you do some very standard stuff, a square through 3/4 or a pass through to the Allemand left. Don't leave yourself 6 or 8 calls to go after that in order to get to the Allemand left. Turning the page. This one I got from Tony. He was doing a caller's clinic with me and talked about how to set up a scoot back from a quarter tag. And we all know that that's not common. But he pointed out that if you have the center wave from a standard setup, do a swing through first, then your quarter tag scoot back has boys reaching to boys. And that's something that's familiar and common. And it'll work. You'll get people who haven't ever done one before to successfully accomplish a quarter tag scoot back because boys reach for boys, girls reach for girls, and it feels normal. Then they come back in the middle and say, what am I doing here? Recycle answers their question and gives you plenty of time to tell the outsides to turn around. And you don't want to do much more than that. If they get real sharp, then let the outsides cloverleaf while that recycle goes down in the middle. Then you got a whole new ball game. I talked at the outset about developing a figure where you take a simple set of variations and put them together into a piece that they can do. Dixie style is a call that causes a lot of trouble. Callers don't use it very often. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because the left-handed wave that you get out of it is frightening. But it's a nice action. Let me offer you one caution. In the second sequence where it says next, all 4 couples, easy, I read it through and realized that that comma is not very noticeable. The second line says ladies chain Dixie style. There's a comma in between there. That means do a ladies chain and then do a Dixie style. I read right through that comma, so I've put a big circle around it and marked it. I advise you to do the same, particularly if you're going to take this home and read it to your dancers. Don't. You build it up so that you teach them how to do a Dixie style. First with just 2 couples and a straight step ahead to the left Allemand. So there's very little opportunity to get in trouble. After you've assured yourself that 2 couples can do it, both the heads and the sides, you then try it with all 4 doing it at once. And then do that again, but with a variation to it slightly. And the difference between the all 4 couples easy and the next one is not very much. It's just there's a little more dancing action in there. Finally, that last 3 sets of sequences are aimed toward the final one, which is a sequence, a gimmick that I found interesting to dance and to call, where you set up a Dixie style and have just the boys from the center do a scoot back while the girls circulate to the left Allemand. A nice variation. It's something that dancers find interesting. But if you call that to a floor that you haven't coaxed through a couple of Dixie styles, you're likely to have some trouble. If you call it to a floor where you've not had the centers from that Dixie style do a scoot back, you're likely to have some trouble. So teach them just the center scoot back and the girls circulate to the left Allemand and the Dixie style individually. Teach them each of those actions before you combine them into the final sequence. My experience with groups is that if you called that final sequence without having previously used a Dixie style, your chance of success is minimal. If you call it without having the boys in the center do the scoot back first, that's going to confuse things because the girls left while they were doing it. I don't think you're going to have a high level of success with many of the groups that we call for. And so the message here is, if you want to use an interesting sequence that involves some difficulty, teach them the pieces before you present the whole concept at once. It's developing a choreographic idea. And finally, the bottom line, I have a tendency myself to say, once I've done that, oh, that was nice and it worked, and go on to other things. I went for several years, one of my caller friends had a daughter and son who were in the comedy club business, and so we went to comedy clubs. And one of the things I noticed at the comedy club is that comedians regularly get some gimmick going at the beginning of their program, and they use it through the program. A theme. They get a punchline, which they repeat. And they don't have to tell the joke anymore. The punchline gets the laugh. We did that this morning with The Who. It works as a choreographic tool, as a programming tool. Once you have taken the trouble to teach a sequence like this, center, scoot back, end, circulate to a left Alaman, use it. Not just in this tip, but in the next one, and a couple of more times during the evening. You've given the dancers a sequence. Sure, if that's the only gimmick you use for the next 3 weeks, not great. But don't throw it away because you've used it once. Maybe you're bored with it, but the dancers will find it a smooth, danceable, interesting variation. Don't do it only until they succeed and then stop doing it. Once you've taught it to them, let them enjoy it. And with that, let's open the floor and see if we've got any questions.
Jim Mayo, ladies and gentlemen. Would a couple of you come and pass out this last handout? And if somebody has a stack of leftover handouts of Jim's, would you bring them forward so we put them in the office in case anybody else wants them? We do want your involvement. We want questions and comments. We do have to put them on the mic, so if you have such, would you come up here, and I'll give you this mic to put them on, and we'll use the one Bill has to answer with. Anybody? If not, then would you give yourselves a nice hand for being here? Thank you. Yeah, we will take another shot at questions or comments if you have them. Okay? Ask you to put them on the mic. We'll put you over here. Nothing? Coming? Here comes Max. Hi, Max. Boy, Bill's on the spot. Max Forsyth.
I wanted to comment on just two things. He made the statement of keeping 80% of the dancers dancing, and then I've had people now say 75. I think we should think about it the other way. If your ambition is to keep 80% of the people dancing, or are you trying to keep 20% of them stopped? You know, if the one statement is true, the other statement doesn't sound very good, does it? But you should sort of think about that. And I appreciate his 100%. Now, one other thing. I find myself, if I am purely sight, I find myself once in a while falling into the trap. You know, you get a square you can really depend on. But what you should do, let's say they're dancing there or clear back there. But you shouldn't call to them. Pick standard dancers, not the head-down dancers. You know what I mean? You know, they're dancing that way. That's a good way not to be successful. Get the people who represent the group. Do your calling with them. Then when it's time to figure out where you are, go back to these people. You know they haven't made a mistake. You know, they didn't make... Yeah. Okay. But nevertheless, you wouldn't sight on one square anyway. And if you look over there, if they've made a mistake, 2 of the 4 girls are exchanged or something like that. But call to these other people, and then go back and look at your side squares. I think some of the explanation why in a particular club, maybe that used to dance 12 squares and now they're dancing 4, might be that callers were calling too much to the fastest square and doing all their timing that way, and the other people found another place to dance. So call to the average, use the fast square for a safety get out.
Thank you, Mac.
Sorry about that, Bill.
Anybody else have any questions?
I want to add just one comment to that. If you're using choreography that properly presented wipes out the square you've picked as the strongest dancers to be your key square, you better change your choreography.
And I wanted to make one other comment, too. I don't do all those little gimmick get-outs that I showed you here in one dance. No, a dance. You said tip. As my wife says, a little bit of that goes a long way. And that's what you've got to figure out. That's got to be your philosophy. You might do 1 or 2 of those a night, but still the star through square through 3/4 to a left allemande still beats any of that stuff right there.
Anyone else, Jim? Jim has a...
I don't know how many of you pay attention to round dancing, but do you ever notice the difference in the crowd on the floor when the classics are played versus when the new rounds are played? Did you ever notice that when Frank Sinatra comes to town, or whoever is current these days, they don't sing the new songs for most of their program. They sing the songs where everybody joins in with them.